everyone, welcome to another episode of Forward Gettysburg. My name is Aaron Smith. I am coming from you from Barlow's Knoll. At the time of the battle on July 1st, it would have been known as Blocker's Knoll due to the Blocker Farm, which would be through this cornfield over here on the Carlisle Pike or Carlisle Road. It's a gorgeous day here at the Gettysburg National Military Park. It was a little bit rainy beforehand, but sun is slowly trying to peek out. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys again. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to talk a little bit about the action that happened in this area. This is a bit of a lesser known part of the battlefield, but nonetheless there were some very important actions that took place here. Pretty much the theme of the day is going to be history repeats itself. And unfortunately for the 11th Corps, Barlow's division, which is going to be posted in this area on this small little piece of elevation just north of what would have been at the time the county almshouse, history is going to repeat for the 11th Corps in the face of the Confederate Army being on the flank of the Union Army. I have my handy dandy Phil Lano map book with me, an excellent purchase. If you don't have one yet, pick it up, totally worth the price. Amazon, the Park Service, Visitor Center, bookstore, anywhere fine Civil War books are sold, you can grab yourself a copy. So this is going to be my guide here. So in the afternoon, kind of late morning, early afternoon of July 1st, the 11th Corps is going to hit the field. The 11th Corps is commanded by Oliver Otis Howard. And he has been in charge of the 11th Corps for some time now. He was in charge at Chancellorsville. We all know what happened to the 11th Corps at Chancellorsville, where the Confederate flank attack led by Stonewall Jackson crashed into them on May 2nd and drove them from the field. I am live here at the Battlefield Park, so there will be some traffic passing. Sorry, so I just want to apologize ahead of time for the cars passing by. But anyway, the 11th Corps is a unique corps. They unfortunately gained the term the Flying Dutchman. The majority of the corps is made up of German immigrants, and a lot of people might think, well, Dutchmen, aren't they from the Netherlands? Aren't they, from that area of the world? But I can't help but wonder the people that coined them the Flying Dutchman, if they weren't more referring to Pennsylvania Dutch, which was Pennsylvania German. I have to imagine that's where the origin of that's coming from, because not very many of these people were from the Netherlands. So it's just an interesting little background about that term, Flying Dutchman. But due to the actions at Chancellorsville, they gained a reputation as the Flying Dutchman, unfortunately. So they're going to post here. There's action happening over there on Oak Ridge. The Confederates are coming down from General Ewell, Rhodes Division, and then there's going to be some action there over there in the woods there along that little Oak Ridge line. Of course, we have the McPherson Woods, Seminary Ridge. So the 11th Corps is going to come, and they're going to post themselves on the right flank of the Union line, which is essentially where we're at right now. We're on the far right flank of the Union line on July 1st. So Barlow's division, the 1st Division in the 11th Corps, at the time, Oliver Otis Howard, he's going to take control of all troops on the field that day after the death of John Reynolds over there in the McPherson's Woods. So Oliver Otis Howard, he's going to take control of the Union Army. He's going to command the field until Winfield Scott Hancock arrives under orders from General Meade to become commander of the field. So, with that being said, Schurz, leader of the 1st Division, 2nd Division, I believe, of the 11th Corps, he is going to take over as commander of that corps. We're just going to bump Schimmelpfennig up, and he is now going to command that division. So Schimmelpfennig's division, they're going to set up on the east side of the Carlisle Road, so which would be in this direction over here. They're going to set up a line there, a thinly stretched line reaching over into the woods there to connect with at the time, the right of the Union line. That line's going to extend down this road right here, and it's going to connect with Kurzanowski's brigade, which is going to be lined up here, and General Francis Barlow is going to move his division into line on this piece of high ground that we're on right now. He's going to set up von Gilsa's brigade on the left on this knoll, and he's going to set up Adelbert Ames's brigade on the right of this knoll. Adelbert Ames is probably my favorite name to say in the Civil War. Awesome name, Adelbert. They just don't make names like that anymore. Interesting thing about Adelbert Ames is he was in charge of the 20th Maine. He was colonel of the 20th Maine, was promoted. That's how Joshua Chamberlain was then promoted from lieutenant colonel to colonel. Intelligent man. He later goes on to become a chief of staff, I believe. If not chief of staff, one of those higher ranking administrative officer positions for the Union Army. But really interesting character, really interesting guy. Very strict. Wasn't well liked by his men, wasn't well loved by his men. And that brings up a really interesting point about the 11th Corps. I just want to talk about the idea of unit cohesion. When these men were out in the battlefield, the only thing they had to rely on in the thick of battle with lead flying left and right, thick with cannonballs and Minet balls and all these things, the only thing you had to rely on was the man to your right and the man to your left. Of course, unless you were on the flank. But you get the point I'm trying to make. So the only thing you had to rely on was the men within your unit. A lot of these men spoke different languages than each other. A lot of these men didn't trust each other. So the unit cohesion of the 11th Corps just really wasn't there like it might have been in the 1st Corps or some of these other corps, the 3rd Corps, stuff like that. So the unit cohesion really wasn't there. Anyway, Barlow's going to move his division up here to Blocker's Knoll. And if the corn wasn't here, you'd be able to see down a field. You'd be able to see the elevation start to decrease, and it's going to run down to Rock Creek, which is kind of like that moat that runs on the moat, if you will, that runs on the eastern side of Gettysburg from north to south, south to north, however you want to call it. Von Gilsa is going to be the first one to set up. We're going to have the 54th New York, the 153rd Pennsylvania right in front of me, and the 68th New York. Now the 68th New York is going to send skirmishers, and they're not going to send skirmishers forward, but they're going to send skirmishers in an attempt to attach their line to the rest of the division, which is along this road here. They're going to try to connect to them. Later on, the 107th Ohio, the 25th Ohio, they're going to join them. We're on the 75th Ohio, the 17th Connecticut. They're also going to join. And then we're going to have Wilkinson's battery. They're going to be posted on this hill as well. Now, the thing about Gettysburg, in order to understand the Battle of Gettysburg, you have to understand the land. Where this knoll is, if we look at it in a vacuum, yes, it's a piece of high ground. High ground is good, whereas the high ground wins battles. That's Civil War 101. However, if you look off over this direction, that elevation in the distance over there is Oak Hill, that kind of bald hill with the tree line that starts there. That's Oak Hill. In between Oak Hill and Blocker's Knoll is nothing but flat farm field. It is not a very good defensible position whatsoever. So to appreciate the Battle of Gettysburg, we have to appreciate the topography of the land. This is not a very good defensible position. We have some small heights over there in the Oak Ridge area where the right of the Union line is, and between us and them really isn't anything that is easy to defend. There's no type of elevation. It's just flat farm field until it rises up to that Oak Ridge, Sheeds Woods area over there. So the Union's going to deploy. Barlow's going to deploy his men along this knoll here. He has created a salient. Not only has he created a salient, he has created a salient whose flanks are weak and unprotected. The 107th Ohio is going to be his far left flank. The 17th Connecticut essentially is going to be his right flank. Other than that, he is in the air. He is not anchored to anything. He's not even anchored to the rest of the Union line. He is probably about 300 yards forward of Kurzanowski's brigade. See, before I made this video, I even practiced that last name. I said I wasn't going to screw it up. First time I say it, butchered it. Kurzanowski brigade. They're going to be posted along the Carlisle Road there. On either side of the Carlisle Road. His far right flank is going to be the 26th Wisconsin. His far left flank is going to be the 82nd Ohio. Now, attacking down from the north, we're going to have Early's division of Ewell's Corps. Now, in my last video, I talked about Early, and I talked about Gordon and their march through into York, Pennsylvania, and the surrender of York. These guys are going to make their appearance again. They are going to head east along modern-day Route 30, the York Road. They're going to head back to the west via modern-day 234. I forget what they called that back then. Modern-day 234. It was a road back then. We'll go with that. They're going to march back west to Gettysburg. They're eventually going to hit the Harrisburg Pike, which is a road that parallels modern-day Route 15 north to south. And they're going to march south. They're going to hit the field, and they're going to hit the field in force. We're going to have Dole's Georgians. They're going to be coming in from Barlow's left. We're going to have Gordon's Georgians. They're going to be coming in on Barlow's right. Further on, we're going to have Hazen's Louisianans, those Louisianan Tigers. They're going to be coming in on the far right. And what's going to happen is they're going to come up over that Rock Creek. They're going to cross the creek, and they're going to apply pressure here to this position. And eventually this position is going to become surrounded. They're not going to be able to hold this position. Schurz is going to order Kurzanowski's brigade forward to support these men, but it's not going to be enough. What's happening is Hayes' Louisianans, they are coming around this flank here, and they're going to be down in where the modern-day Wise Markets is, essentially, down this area. And they're going to start to surround this right flank of the Union line. And then even further back, we have Extra Billy Smith's brigade, who is going to be even further beyond that, marching to reinforce and engage in this battle. So this is not a good spot to be in the Union line. They are surrounded. Kurzanowski is coming up on the left, but it's not going to be enough. Eventually a general retreat is ordered. These men are going to go back through the modern day Adams County Agricultural Center, which at that time was the Adams County Almshouse, the cemetery of which still exists today, still has headstones and everything. You can walk it and tour it. Beautiful little spot on the battlefield. But where the modern day Ag Center is the Almshouse. And the Almshouse was a complex of buildings that kind of served as the county's jail, the county's poorhouse, the county's mental asylum at the time. A bit of a halfway house. So kind of these, for lack of a better term, dregs of Adams County. They would have these wards of the county. They would have all been housed at the county almshouse. And of course their cemetery still exists there today. So they're going to come back through. General Barlow himself is going to be wounded, and the Confederates are going to find him laying underneath a tree. And it's actually said that John B. Gordon himself finds Francis Barlow wounded and resting underneath a tree. He's going to be evacuated to a house north of town by other Union prisoners, and he's going to be left for dead. Francis Barlow does not die this day. He does not die at Gettysburg. He goes on, and he's actually recognized for his acts of valor during the Spotsylvania campaign, or not campaign, the Battle of Spotsylvania. I apologize. That's the Overland campaign. But during the Battle of Spotsylvania, he's going to be recognized for his valor. And if you know anything about Spotsylvania, that was some of the most intense fighting of the entire Civil War. The longest sustained fighting at the Bloody Angle there at Spotsylvania. The longest sustained fighting of the entire war. For 22 hours straight, men fought hand to hand in an attempt to take that position. So you know that Spotsylvania was not a pleasant battle. It was not an easy battle. One side didn't steamroll the other. It was hand to hand, and there Francis Barlow is going to be recognized for his valor in leading his men. Eventually the men of the 11th Corps of Barlow's division, they're going to go back through town, and with the rest of the 1st Corps and the 11th Corps that also is retreating through town, they are going to reorganize that Cemetery Hill. Now, like I said at the beginning of this, history repeats itself. Here we have the 11th Corps on a flank, being attacked and retreating. That sounds like Chancellorsville. That's essentially what happens the first day at Gettysburg. And Oliver Otis Howard is going to receive a lot of flack for this. Here it is again. Your corps is retreating on a flank. However, Howard was not a dumb man. He was not a bad general. He just happened to get a string of bad situations, a string of bad luck. But he is smart. He had the wherewithal and the foresight to recognize Cemetery Hill as the position on the field, as the commanding position for artillery and defense on the field of Gettysburg. Excuse me. So Oliver Otis Howard is going to leave one of his divisions, von Steinwehr's division, on Cemetery Hill. And as the Union troops retreat back from the north and west of town, they're going to reorganize on Cemetery Hill, and that is going to become the key position at the Battle of Gettysburg. That is the commanding piece of topography on this field, hands down, bar none, no question or debate about it. So Howard, though he may receive a bad rap, he also should be recognized for having that foresight to take that position and leave one of his divisions behind. Ewell's men, of course, they're going to come in, they're going to take up positions to the east of town. Eventually, of course, we have that order from General Lee, take that hill if practicable, which Ewell does not take. We can get into that. We can talk about that all day till our faces are blue. But that's a little outside the scope of Barlow's Knoll here. So Francis Barlow is going to be captured. Wilkeson and his battery. Wilkeson is going to be wounded in the leg. He is going to take a pocket knife and he is going to actually amputate his own leg. He was hit by some shell in his leg. He's going to amputate his own leg. He's going to die one day later. His father was a reporter from the New York Times, and his father is actually going to report later on, and he's going to write about the Battle of Gettysburg on July 4th, when he found his son's body. And he's going to write, "My pen is heavy. O you dead, who at Gettysburg have baptized with your blood the second birth of freedom in America." That's one of those stories about this battle that just really, really drives it home. This man reporting on the events here finds his son's dead body and still has the wherewithal and the inspiration to write something so important that, "O you dead who at Gettysburg who have baptized with your blood the second birth of freedom in America." It really goes to show that a lot of these men fighting thought that this indeed was the second birth of freedom in America. Thank you all so much for joining me today, talking about Barlow's Knoll, Blocker's Knoll, the 11th Corps, Barlow's division, the action that happened here. It's a very, very nice spot on the battlefield. Probably up there as one of my favorite spots on the battlefield. Very, very far off the beaten path, if you will. Not a lot of traffic. Not a lot of people know about what happened out here. The only thing I can complain about is the corn is probably about 8 feet high, so I really wish I could see the decline down into Rock Creek, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. You know, farmers got to do their job as well. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this episode of Forward Gettysburg, and I'll see you all the next time.